A man getting bit by an alligator and he screams.
Okay, quiet. Hey, quiet.
Stood out towards me.
Oh! No, not an owl. A real scream of pain.
So, Ellen, thank you for sitting down with us to talk about American Baby, and congratulations on such a compelling, timely, and beautiful film.
Thank you so much for speaking to me. I really appreciate it.
So I think there's a lot to unpack in this film. I think there's a lot of layers and subtleties, but I would love to start with the title, because I think the title, I think titles tell us in some way, how to watch, how to read, how to interpret. But this title, I think, works on so many different levels and implies so many different things. And so I just wondered how you were thinking about this title.
Yeah, so I can tell you the full story and take it back a little bit. American Baby was originally titled Growing Pains because I had made a short film in Russia titled Growing Pains about teenage pregnancy in Russia. It was a different movie because it dealt with something completely different. The question of abortion rights is not a question there, but the question of social apathy is. People don't really come to help you even if they see you in trouble. There's like a lot of different social nuance there, and that movie was called Growing Pains. And when Roe was overturned in June of 2022, I realized that there is potential to evolve that short film into an American feature, and I had a first feature fall apart right around then, so I was being very pragmatic about like how to get a first feature off the ground, and a proof of concept like is a way. So I had this short called Growing Pains, and so the feature became Growing Pains. Cut to, we finished the movie, and Growing Pains is like a TV show from the 80s here that I've never seen.
Oh, you're missing out. I mean,
okay.
No, I'm kidding. You're not. You're not. Absolutely not.
And yeah, I just wasn't vibing with the title. It felt like a little bit of a, it was very tied to the Russian short film to me. And so I was thinking what else the title could be. And, I chose to set it in Texas for the specificity of Texas, the elements, the music, the dancing, the clothing. And I was just thinking that, I even wanted to adapt the Russian story to an American version, so maybe there's something there in the specificity of the location. And of course then I was like, well, the words American Baby have like triple meaning here. She's having an American baby, she is an American baby, and quite frankly this movie is my American baby. So that's how that landed.
And I also think that there's a layer of politics with the title of American Baby, of this kind of like quintessential, this is what happens, right? We are going to tell you what you should do with your unborn child, but as soon as you have it, right, we don't care. We want nothing to do with you, right? And we want to sort of prevent your autonomy or choices. And so this idea of like, this is a different kind of American baby, this kind of baby that comes into the world with almost no support, right? Where the mother is completely shunned by society as well.
Yeah, well, there's something like very unique about the way America approaches the subject, because on the one hand, I was stunned as a kid who grew up in Europe that sex ed is not uniform across the country. Like, I had sex ed with like all the details, mind you, in the 3rd grade. Maybe people weren't ready for it, but they had like the foundational knowledge, and then like perhaps teenage pregnancy is just less of a problem because you have that, but at least you like learn about it. And there's so much that I think is very strange about the way America approaches it. Like, I do think, the position of someone who believes that they may go to hell is like totally legitimate. It may not be my position, but that's why I wanted to, make this movie from the perspective of a young girl who does believe that. But then she's still faced with a lot of difficulty. So there's really no good way out. And that is a uniquely American,
Brock
conundrum.
And I, we still don't know. And we never got it either, so...
Sex ed.
Yeah.
No, just education,
Right,
period.
period. Yeah, and I think that's even more indicative. We could talk the same thing about, how actually education is treated, especially now. But I think one of the things your film does so well is that it's never on the nose and it's never preachy, and it lets everyone it lets all of those things kind of unfold and lets the audience gather all those things for themselves. I think and I think in a lesser film, we would be saying, she would be going to some place and like being told that she couldn't have sex education, and so it's really, really, I think, well done how you put all that together. I wanted to talk about how you came to your lead, because I think you put so much weight on this young actor's and actress's shoulders, but she carries it off so well. I just wanted to learn how you kind of came across her and like what's your relationship and.
Yes, so Abby Pniowski, who played Ollie, was 15 years old when we shot it, which still breaks my brain, to be honest, because she did a lot of emotional heavy lifting, and she was totally a kid, And by that I mean she this age is so striking to me because you carry both. You're so thoughtful and mature in moments, and then in other moments you're totally naive and like innocent. It was really important for me to find someone age specific. So I really wanted a 15, 16-year-old. I had looked at actresses that were 18 plus, but you can just really tell in the eyes. There's something about it, I can't describe it, but on camera there's no lying. And we looked at a lot of girls in Texas originally. We had, we filmed this after the pandemic, so a lot of Zoom auditions. I saw definitely hundreds, perhaps inching towards 1,000 girls sent in tapes. And nothing, was strange, but nothing was lightning strike. And so afterwards, after a few months, we put together a list of actresses. One of my producers had done a short 5 years prior starring a 10-year-old, and they had a list of actors that were 5 years prior to the American Baby, which meant they were 15.
Right.
And Abby was just on that list. And Abby had one really insane credit, which was she was in Denis Villeneuve's Arrival. And I, of course, originally resonated to her last name. It sounded Eastern European. Turns out her dad's family is from Ukraine originally. And I was like, well, if this works, this could be great. And then I Zoomed her, and she was terrific. I mean, it was immediately obvious. And it because, when you go a few months not finding your lead, you're like, maybe I'm being nitpicky. Maybe one of these girls could work. But no, I was proven correct with Abby. I was just waiting for her to come speak to me. Yeah.
No, go ahead. No, she's fantastic, and the way that again, she carries that kind of maturity and vulnerability and childlike, spirit. Makes this movie really. It helps us attach emotionally so much to this. And the line she has to her friend of, "I think I liked our doll parties better," was just kind of crushing too. Also, she has to deal with this. The character and the actor has to deal with everyone sort of turning against her throughout the film, and one by one just losing this support system, which is something else that I think the film really speaks to, is this idea of community and how it can be so important, but then also can destroy you at the same time.
Yeah.
Just a statement. Right. But I did. Okay, so an actual question. How did your background as someone from Eastern Europe play into this? Because Abby's mother Ali's mother in the film is from Ukraine and has moved to this community from Ukraine for a better way of life.
Well, I think, first of all, I'll explain my background. I was born in Germany to Ukrainian parents, and then when I was 8, we moved to Russia, and so I mostly grew up in Russia.
I'm glad you explained that because I would have got it mixed up.
Yeah. So when the question, where are you from, has notoriously been a tough one for me to answer. But I think, first of all, as a foreigner, I can touch on these polarizing American issues a little more evenly. It doesn't even emotionally, I mean, it resonates with me, of course, as a young woman, but I don't think I have the team allegiance that sometimes Americans have. I'm more why is this happening? Why are people not speaking to each other? And so I came at it for sure from my purpose was a little bit and a lot bit bridge building, because I think it's kind of crazy that people have these passionate opinions and cannot hear each other out. In terms of the Ukrainian mother, first of all, I was making this movie after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, so it was strange for me to not have that at all in my first movie. And second, actually, when the Soviet Union fell apart, there was a lot of religious missionary. There were a lot of religious missionaries going to the former Soviet Union and building bridges with the communities there. And Ukraine was called the Bible Belt of Eastern Europe. So I figured that was a nice natural way to do that, include the Ukrainian storyline. But also, to be honest, it's a way to portray religion as more complicated, because it saved her. This religious community saved the mom. And you may have complex feelings about religion if you're not in this community, but and it's easy to judge someone for their beliefs like this, but also factually, we have this woman here who her entire life turned around because of this religious community affiliation. So it was, it complicated the narrative for me in a way that I liked.
And I think again, that is one of the things that I really loved about this film, was that it didn't preach, it wasn't didactic, it just kind of showed us these things. And again, it showed us this religion saved this woman, but it also then kind of destroys this family in a way, right? Or rips them apart from their community. And as someone, again, not from Texas originally, the pastors, bless your heart, I thought was just really...
Right, with all that rings
so true.
Right? Yeah, I mean, which is so frustrating. And because as you see that scene unfold, you know exactly how it's going to play out. I think... So how much, knowing post-Roe, how much, you said you sat it in Texas, or you for specific reasons, and of course you mentioned New Mexico. How much was that? In regards to, this was the place that you were always going to put this film?
So, yeah, I wanted to set it in a conservative state. And then, there's the recurring motif of the girls dancing. That's so specific to the line dancing of Texas. A whole is made up of a lot of little bits, and I like the specifics of the little bits in Texas. The clothes, the belt buckles, the Texas specific patriotism. There's a lot of Texas shirts.
Yep. And flags.
Yep. But also I wanted to add that I actually did a lot of research. So even the Bless Your Heart line was something I realized people were saying, because, not growing up in America or Texas, I was not confronted with it. But I spoke to a lot of people who grew up in small towns, and specifically young women who dealt with pregnancy in small towns or not so small towns. I did a pretty wide thing, wide research. But I also, I would actually also say I was on a road trip and enter Baptist churches and talk to the priests, right? They're called preachers or priests?
They're usually preachers. Or, yeah,
preachers.
They're not,
pastors.
I would talk to the pastors. Sorry, I get confused on the lingo.
We all do, right?
As a Catholic, I want to be very sort of protective of priests. No, I'm kidding.
No.
Of the term priest, no.
Okay. But no, I would enter I would enter churches and talk to the pastors. And like, for instance, I wanted to know what there's like a suicide subplot. And I specifically remember entering one church and I lied, which is obviously a sin, but I was like,
we forgive you.
Yeah.
Right. They're probably not listening. It's
yeah,
okay.
they're not listening to this. I lied and said that I've just found out a friend had committed suicide and what happens to them after they pass, because I wanted to know what they really believed. And like the way they spoke to me was also very interesting. I mean, it was very like circular, but essentially like the answer's not good here.
Right, yeah, no, there's not I mean, yes, especially when you're talking about Baptist religion, there's not a lot of black and white. I mean, there's not a lot of gray, I'm sorry, it's only black and white, right? I think not being from here, and like I grew up in Texas, I think you tap into so many things that like, and again, it's not a club over your head, but like the idea of the youth group and what's Elijah's character's name? I'm sorry.
Toby.
Toby, yes. So, and Toby's participation in a youth group, although he's not that religion, rings so true to Texas youth, especially small town Texas youth. And that, in that moment where she meets the youth minister, or it seems to be the youth minister talking about the summer camps for wayward girls, I think really, really rings true in this state. And it's not even this is a pre-Roe world as well. Like, this is exactly how it's been. Roe, in essence, just kind of solidified and allowed them to criminalize Plan B and any sort of like help and any sort of gender care, all of it. And I think what you were able to accomplish, and I think that all that research really paid off.
Thank you. Yeah, I had no idea that youth groups were a thing going into this story. I mean,
Wait until we tell you about Christian rock groups.
Yes, but I was asked how kids hang out. Like,
yeah.
What do they do after school? Most of them hang out in these youth groups, to be honest.
And it's, and again, however you look at it, right, it can be very insipid in a way, because it is indoctrination in a sense, and for those who are believers, it feels safe and it feels like you're. But again, it's also, I grew up in an area, not to make this about me, but I grew up in an area where, it was the highest per capita in Texas of teenage pregnancies, and it was all because, not all because, but we did have a high, prevalence of these types of youth groups and kids that are being funneled through these, but also kids full of hormones being funneled off and like being left to their own, and like they have these church lock-ins that I'm sure happen all over the country, but it happens a lot in Texas where kids go to a church and then they stay overnight, and it's just it's just this weird like enclave of like Texas, like teenage hormones in a weird, like, and you're hoping that Jesus stops all those from happening.
Why there's balloons like Catholic dances between people
to keep space for the Holy Ghost.
Spirit.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
But this brings up something else that is important to the film, and this kind of idea of almost like selective forgiveness too, where at the party that they go to, right, these boys, or one boy in particular, is really pressuring Ollie to have sex with him. And then that same boy later is like, I knew you were a slut. And you're like, well, wait a minute, right? The hypocrisy there, which is what you're just describing, right? Of going to this youth group, preaching like abstinence, and then like these boys, right, pressuring, pushing, forcing, right, cajoling. Yeah. But then who do we blame?
Yeah.
Right? We blame the woman. We blame the young woman, the young 15-year-old, right?
Yeah.
And another thing I think your film does so well is that it exemplifies the burden that this situation puts on young women, right? And the loneliness of it all. But like, she has to shoulder all of this. There's no, even her mom to a certain extent is like, well, we'll get through this. But there's no true answer for Ollie in this, other than what she's going to find for herself.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. She's in it alone.
Can we talk, I guess without like spoiling the ending, I think this ends on a really interesting sort of like elliptical note. And part of me wants, I want to ask, like, how did you sort of envision what comes next for these characters? Like, did you have like in your mind, like, this is what happens to Ollie and Toby?
Did it, because I think like it works better with my intention of, building conversations to not answer these questions. Everyone can, imagine whatever they want to imagine. That's like the pro of the open ending. I did, my producers and I and some of the others on the team, we met in an MFA program, the chairman of which was Larry Terman, when who was the producer of The Graduate. And he died when we were shooting. And so, not a spoiler, but there's an homage to him.
Yeah, no, that's why I didn't want to give that away, right? But I mean, and again, like a film that ends on such an elliptical note, where like we are left to sort of imagine, right, or run through these different scenarios, right, which again leaves that room for conversation of, okay, well, what if this, what if that, right? And so we could see, I think, even more of like the failure of the community kind of come in depending on how we imagine these things, right? I will say that I don't think it's as bleak of an ending as The Graduate. I think
it's interesting. It's in
right.
the eye of the beholder. I had
Right.
someone yesterday tell me why I made such a depressing ending, and I was like, "What do you mean?"
That's interesting.
And because this is a spoiler, but I used to refer to this ending as my fairy tale ending.
I think in a lot of ways it is, where like these two people who are both outcasts in different ways. Something else about this film is like the layer of othering that happens. I find really interesting and sort of like interesting to sort of unpack and like pick apart. But so we have these two young kids, right, who are othered in very different ways, looking at each other and like, let's just get the fuck out of here. Like, let's just go, right? We'll figure it out. Let's go. There's something I think very freeing and very empowering about that ending. So yeah, it makes sense that it's a fairy tale ending.
Yeah.
And the bus is the white horse that they're riding out of town on, right?
Yeah.
Oh, not to spoil the ending, sorry.
Either way, people should go.
They
see
weren't
this,
supposed
right?
to know that the bus was white.
Yeah, actually, when I was saying someone thought it was a really depressing ending, that person walked in. Literally the guy. I was like, oh.
That's amazing. That's amazing. We should bring them in and we should tell them why. Right? You know what? Listen to me. Let me tell you why you got the ending wrong. Right?
I was like, you're too pragmatic. Because he was like, these two children will not survive on their own.
Right. I think that's easy to like.
Yeah, and I do think that's. I think that's. It's not necessarily a wrong take per se, but I mean, like, also I do think you have to like. If there's no hope, what do we do, right? If we don't end this on, because this could have ended all different kinds of ways,
Absolutely.
right? And this could, and I think that's the other, the emotional journey that Ollie goes through, and all the things that she, considers are just so powerful. And I'm like, at some points, I'm sitting watching this film, and then, when she's in the trailer by herself, and again, I won't spoil anything. I'm just like I'm struck, and I'm just I almost breath taken away by how powerful that scene is, and I'm just and so the fact that you were able to like come back around and provide some levity, I think is I think you had to. I think it's
Absolutely. I think so too. Yeah.
It also goes back to that sort of liminal space of like a 15, 16-year-old of not really being an adult, not really being a child, but there is still a sense of like kind of magic and whimsy and just like a kind of, we'll just figure it out. Like we'll make it work, right? That I really love and that I think is important to sort of like keep hold of.
I agree.
Yeah. I don't think people are going to believe that you're not from Texas.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right. Because I think, you really captured that.
Because this feels like a film that someone's grew up here their entire life.
Great. That is a huge compliment, because this is, that's a concern for me.
Right.
I don't want to be that foreigner who came in and.
Well, and you don't do anything like pandering to Texas either. I mean, like the line dancing, yes, of course, but that's not that is something that's true. It's not overt where we're all like riding horses down the street, or
Totally.
the stereotypical things that you think of being truly Texan.
Well, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
The reason I even included the line dancing is because the girls, the two actresses, they were both dancers, and Claire, who plays Miriam, is from Texas, and Abby was not from Texas. And Claire would teach Abby how to line dance between takes, and I was like, we're just including this in the movie.
That's perfect.
Because you guys are doing this anyway. We did a lot of actually like this kind of found documentary style stuff. I mean, all the B-roll is documentary. All the people watching her walk past are just people in a small town. And the DP, David, and I would go out on weekends, just the two of us with a camera, and I had release forms. And so anytime we, filmed someone, I ran up to them with a release form. We asked for permission first, but it was, that was very much our approach in the whole thing in terms of like, find the reality.
You tell this story. Is there anything that gives you? This is profoundly an issue that doesn't have a clear resolution. And I know your film's not an issue film per se, but is there anything that like gives you hope in this sense, or like in this era that we find ourselves in?
I think the thing that gives me hope, but also at the same time the lack of which concerns me, is like I think things are always better when people speak to each other. Like the fact that people can't debate without even like on an anecdotal personal level, people just do not know how to disagree with each other and remain friendly anymore, is extremely concerning. So when people can do that, that's hope inspiring. But I feel like, I found that this was actually a cultural thing too. Eastern Europeans, we're big on debate. I remember my best friends and I, at one point, this is a memory of me at 8 years old. All we did was we were three of us. We would debate each other on every topic. But at one point, one of them decided to debate me that my birthday is actually not January 19th, but January 18th, because I was born right around midnight and in a different time zone. But whatever. It's like we grew up debating, and I had to come up with my little list of bullet points about how actually I was born in this time zone, so it is in fact January 19th.
But again, people just playing devil's advocate to play devil's advocate, right? But, as a way of creating discourse, right? We don't know how to argue.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know how to argue.
It absolutely
and not
is.
get mad forever. I've lost friendships, to be honest, because I've disagreed, or because I argue, and that's not the norm here.
I will say there are certain things where I think if somebody says a certain thing to me, I'm like, there's no discussion to be had here, right? So I'm going to walk away because it's not worth my time at that point. But that's, I think far and few between.
Yeah,
right?
I was about to say, if it's extreme, it's a different conversation. But if it's you have to work to find a middle ground,
Yeah, or we're not going to survive.
Yeah.
Right.
What's next for the film?
For the film, we are working on, so we have a wonderful boutique distribution company that's interested, but of course the landscape is tough, and it's an option that appeals to us because we would retain the rights, whatever, but it requires some fundraising from us, so we're working on it. But I really would like a theatrical release because I think there is an audience for this. This is all super anecdotal, but a few 17-year-olds came to watch the movie yesterday. They cinephiles, whatever, and it just speaks so much to that age category. And these are not the people who come to festivals generally, so I really want this movie to find them in a setting that is more natural. So I think it's important to figure out a theatrical release because I do believe an audience is out there. I just don't believe it's the traditional audience that distributors to this day have tended to target.
Yeah, I agree. But I do think it's. I think it's cinematic and it deserves to be seen
on the biggest screen we can. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. So hopefully people get a chance to come out and see it.
Yeah.
Because it's playing. Tell us when it's playing again.
It's playing on Monday
at 4:45.
4:45. April 27th.
Great. So yeah, if,
No, well, actually, it's playing April 26th.
well, it depends on the time zone that you might be in. So like,
Okay.
if you're,
Mexico.
but if,
Right.
you're,
Oh, right, right,
if
right.
you're listening on the East Coast, then it's a different time.
That's right,
So
that's right.
I don't know. Is it at 4?
We'll,
You started it, right?
Yeah. But isn't that a great story?
It is a great story.
I
That
always
is,
laugh
yeah.
about
Yeah.
it. Like, I can't believe this person argued with me about my birthday.
Right. They just wanted to celebrate you a day early. That's all.
See, that's what it was. They just wanted to celebrate.
They didn't
you
wanna
more
wait.
often. They just they could not wait. So that's why they're like, you know what, we have to do this now.
Yeah.
Ellen, thanks so much for
Thank
talking
you
to
so
us
much.
about
Thank you.
this film,
Thank
and
you.
thank you for making this film. And
Thank you so
and you're
much.
right, yeah, it deserves to find this specific audience.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
you.
Best of luck.
Thanks so much.
You have been listening to Why Does the Wilhelm Scream with your hosts, Brock and Jason. If you liked today's episode, do us a favor and rate, review, and subscribe in whatever application you use to consume podcasts these days. You can reach us by visiting whydoesthewilhelmscream.com. If you are in the DFW area, we would love to see you at a Fort Worth Film Club event. You can learn more about those and find a full schedule at fortworthfilmclub.com. And you can learn about my foundation and how we are trying to foster the next generation of film lovers at realhousefoundation.org. That's REEL housefoundation.org. Till next time,